Welcome back, gamers! Sam here for another video, this time on Overwatch. Healing is a very important factor in the game, and as a support character, your job will be to provide those precious hit points back, aiding your allies with pushing the objectives. On this video, you'll be learning the basics of what each healer can do, and some things to keep in mind to take full advantage of their abilities, as well as some of their shortcomings. For more in-depth guides on each specific healer, there are a lot of amazing guides here on YouTube that you can also watch as well. As a personal note, I will not detail specific times for ability cooldowns, how long a special may last, damage output, or health pools, as these are things that can change every season or even in a day. For info on that, be sure to check out Overwatch 2 patch updates on your web browser for the most recent patch notes, or look it up right here on YouTube as well. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Number 1, Mercy. Mercy is the best healer in the game, but it comes at the cost of her damage dealing, which is minimal. The key to a good Mercy is having good mobility, evading damage as much as possible and making yourself a hard target to hit with her Guardian Angel ability, her jump, and hover. It's an advanced move that every good Mercy should use. There's plenty of guides on YouTube on how to do this, so give it a watch and practice in the firing range whenever you can. Mercy possesses a small pistol that does a little damage. It can come in clutch when you see an enemy run away with 1 hit point of health, but always prioritize aiding your allies as you are not contributing any damage to the fights. The resurrect ability is a powerful tool, giving an ally a second chance in the battle. There's a big cooldown on the ability, so a general rule is to use it most on teammates who are keeping the enemy occupied or who are contributing the most to the fight. If you get good at keeping your allies healed, you can use it with a bit more freedom, but be mindful that there might be a clutch moment in the match when you revive a tank or DPS to turn around a losing fight. Mercy's healing, as previously stated, is the best in game. But whenever your DPS or tank are in the middle of a fight, use the damage boost to give your ally that extra bit of damage to maybe turn the tide of battle. You can only heal or damage boost one at a time, so a bit of practice is needed to help you understand when to apply these boosts and where. Finally, her special is Valkyrie, which gives you unlimited hover and a boost to healing and damage for about a couple of seconds. In this state, you can heal multiple people or boost damage with the same beam and move around even faster. Be mindful of that limit though, you don't want to be caught on the enemy side with no teammates to help you escape once the special ends. Number 2, Ana. Ana doesn't have as much mobility as other healers, but she has the ability to heal the farthest with her gun. Some people use her as a sniper and stick way in the back from the team, but she's best used when sticking close to her allies and taking full advantage of her other 2 abilities. Her first ability, Biotic Grenade, is the only ability that can deny healing for enemy units in the whole game, and heal allies at the same time. Denying your enemy from receiving any healing for a couple of seconds can be a great way to hinder enemy healers from keeping their allies alive in clutch moments. Her second ability, Sleep Dart, as the name implies, puts your enemies to sleep. Best moments to use the Sleep Dart is when an enemy targets you directly, with no allies around you, so you can have time to run away and meet up with your allies. When an enemy tank or DPS overextends himself, and your teammates rush in to kill them. And finally, when an enemy player uses a special. If you hit the enemy while they're shouting their special before it activates or afterwards, you can effectively cancel it. With a couple of exceptions like the Diva Bomb or Sombra special. Aiming down the sights increases your accuracy, but it slows you down a lot considerably. So practice no-scoping, using the aim reticule as your guide to heal your allies and to deal damage to enemy players. This takes a lot of practice, but can increase your effectiveness with Ana considerably. Finally, her special is Nano, which boosts your ally's damage and significantly reduces the damage your selected ally receives for the duration of the special. It's perfect for use when the enemy is overtaking your team position, and it instantly returns a sizable chunk of their hit points when it's activated. Possible uses for this can be when your tank is about to be killed off, or when the enemy tank has been killed and your DPS is positioned to deal massive damage on the enemy team. Number 3, Zenyatta. Zenyatta provides good constant healing and solid damage with his sword. orbs, but he doesn't have much mobility, which can make him a target for flankers. Keep close to your allies and keep natural barriers like walls or objects at close hand to give you the best chance of popping a healing orb to self-heal and escape damage with the aid of your ally. If you keep your secondary attack button pressed, Zenyatta will charge up his attack and when released, unleash a furious volley of orbs up to 8. But you can release the button sooner if needed. His orbs fire at a steady rate and have no drop-off. This attack can deal quite a punch but needs a couple of seconds to charge up and must be aimed effectively to deal maximum damage. Learning how to apply this will help you apply massive damage when needed. Zenyatta is more of a passive healer, placing orbs on allies to provide health continuously as long as they have the orb on them. This is of great benefit when your allies are using characters like Genji or Pharah who are constantly zipping in and out of battle. It's easier just to place orbs on them to passively heal them as you aid your tank from behind by firing your orbs at the end. When you place an orb on enemy units, you increase all damage that they receive from all sources. Since placing orbs has no cooldown, don't be afraid to switch orbs on the fly, both for allies and enemies as needed. Zenyatta has the only melee attack with a knockback tool, meaning that if you catch an enemy near a ledge, you can try to kick them into the abyss. But don't rely on this as it's more of a last-ditch effort to get enemies off of you and give yourself some extra time to escape or deal that little bit of extra damage to kill an enemy with low health. Finally, Zenyatta's special is Transcendence, which makes him immune to damage, allows him to move twice as fast, and automatically restore your allies' health to full as long as they're within the aura zone around Zenyatta. It's excellent for countering specials that deal huge amounts of damage like Reapers, Diva, Soldier 76, Junkrat, and more. Second best moments to use your special is when your team is pushing an objective and they need just a couple of seconds extra to kill that pesky DPS or tank that's preventing your team from capturing the points. Number 4, Kiriko. Kiriko is a ninja healer. She can climb up walls and vault over obstacles just like Hanzo. Her kunai can inflict critical damage but are slow-moving projectiles, so a little bit of predicting where your enemy will be is needed to best use her attack more effectively. She's at her best when she's close to her allies, as her ability to prevent damage is integral to her kit and is the #1 thing you need to master when playing her. She heals via paper talismans, up to 10 of them, that will glow yellow when they're honed in on an ally, while glowing blue if it has not yet targeted an ally. The paper talismans have the same range as your swift step ability, meaning you can throw your paper talismans and they will propel forwards for a little bit. Allies can walk through them to receive the healing benefits as well, but if an ally gets in the way of your intended healing target, they will receive the healing instead. So be mindful of that and reposition as needed. Her first ability, Protection Zuzu, prevents allies from taking damage for a couple of seconds by phasing out your allies, meaning that all attacks pass through your allies and do not affect them for that small window of time that the ability is active. This ability can be used to counter anti-heal effects and stunts, environmental damage from dynamite, or effects like Junker Queen's Wound. Even hacks from Sombra can be countered with a well-timed throw. Since the ability doesn't last that much, it is best used to diminish damage that is done, not to completely prevent it. Looking straight down is the best way to cast your charm as fast as possible, as throwing it while looking forward will cast it in an arc, taking more time to activate. Getting the timing right is tricky, and unfortunately depends on the practice that you have with the character. Some examples: Diva's special. You should hold on throwing the charm until the last couple of seconds before her mecha explodes. Reaper's special, throw it after Reaper activates his ability, giving you the best chance of surviving it with just a little damage, unless you barely have any health, in which case your second ability comes into play. Her second ability, Swift Step, allows you to teleport to your ally even with walls or obstacles in the way. You can't teleport to allies from far away, so be sure to have an ally close by so you'll be able to escape if enemies are targeting you directly. This ability can also remove negative status effects on you and gives you a couple of seconds of damage immunity after you teleport. Finally, her special is Kitsune Rush, where her Fox Spirit rushes forward, laying down a path that accelerates attacks and movement speed, while reducing all ability cooldowns to your allies. The special is best employed when your team is pushing an enemy objective, as the added movement speed can help to overwhelm the staunchest of defenses. Your allied support, who heals by attacking, also benefits greatly from this. Might be worth casting your special if the extra speed gives your allies the mobility and speed to get out of harm's way, or increasing the healing speed you and your support ally provide on those integral moments when receiving big amounts of damage. Number 5. Briggite. Briggite is a unique healer in her own class. Her kit is defensive based, and as such it relies primarily on hitting enemies with her flail to trigger her passive ability Inspire, which applies a healing buff to all allies who are nearby when her passive is triggered. She's best used in conjunction with tanks that can absorb large amounts of damage, and with DPS who get in close and personal with the enemy. This effect doesn't stack, it resets after the allotted seconds are over, but it can be re-triggered instantly by using your ability. Her primary attack is the Flail, which is relatively slow. It's not meant to do a lot of damage, but it can hit multiple enemies at the same time with each swing, making her deadly against her enemies when they're grouped together. Her first ability, Whip Shot, shoots her mace forward in the direction of her aim reticule. On hitting her opponent with it, it activates her passive or resets the ability again if already activated. This ability has a myriad of uses, activating her passive from a distance so your allies can benefit from her healing, or knocking back enemies, or even delivering the final killing blow to enemies with low health. Her second ability, Repair Pack, applies healing to one ally for a couple of seconds. She has a total of 3 charges, which usually has a cooldown of a couple of seconds after casting them to get one back. Throwing multiple repair packs on one ally won't increase the amount of healing, it only extends the time that the healing lasts. If possible, use 1 pack per ally and only use all 3 on your tank if their health is approaching critical. Pressing her secondary fire will deploy her energy shield. It doesn't have a lot of health, so she can't withstand a high amount of damage. It's best used to cover for allies if they're low on health, to give time for your passive to heal you, or to absorb just a little bit of damage to give your DPS or tank a chance to do their damage. When you press primary fire while the shield is active, you perform a shield bash. Shield bash doesn't stun anymore, so it's best used as a means to quickly move in on an opponent, dash around corners to escape enemies and damage, or hide behind natural cover faster. Her special, Rally, gives her armor, gives overhealth to her allies, and increases her shield health as well as its size. If your shield has been destroyed, activating the special instantly restores it and increases the health of her barrier considerably, allowing you to block more damage than usual during the duration of her special. Since her shield is bigger, it can bash multiple opponents and stun them for a couple of seconds. But the stun is only activated once. Subsequent uses only knock back enemies. Her passive, Inspire, also gets activated at the moment her special starts. Since her special doesn't instantly restore health like other supports, it's best used on defensive situations to keep control of an objective, or to preemptively activate it before any fights start so your allies can benefit from your passive buff as they go into the objective to try and capture it. Number 6. Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver is a defensive support healer. His healing is not automatic, and it only heals 1 at a time. As such, he relies on his supportive abilities to reposition allies out of danger or to reach higher areas faster. His abilities have a lot of utility but do require some level of coordination and timing to best pull them off. As such, you can stay behind your allies more often, but not so far that you can't lock in your abilities when needed. He heals via Lotus Blossoms, which provide better healing when you hold down the main fire button until all the petals underneath his aim reticule are full to provide full healing benefits. Even though you can target allies through enemy barriers, as Blossom is a projectile, it will be blocked by the barrier and prevent all healing benefits. You don't have to keep it pressed until full, as you can let it go sooner to provide a bit of healing, but always opt for a full meter if possible. This dash can also provide a little bit of self-healing, great for those moments when you need a little bit of extra health to escape enemy flankers. It has a lot of versatility and a small cooldown time. Use it to reach your allies faster, evade damage, and give yourself that small extra boost to go across big gaps. His secondary fire, Thorn Volley, provides a decent amount of damage but should be used more in a supportive capacity by laying down covering fire for your allies. To better use this, I would recommend mapping the Thorn Volley to the secondary fire or a specific key, so you can effortlessly switch from healing to damage. Otherwise, you will have to manually switch between healing and damage with the D-pad, slowing you down considerably. His first ability, Petal Platform, looks deceptively simple, but has a myriad of useful applications. Most of the time though, you'll be using the Petal Platform as a way to evade enemy flankers or to try and escape from a tank and reposition quickly. First off, when you cast the ability, it does not activate automatically when it's cast, and it has a slight delay when you step on it. You can raise up Torbjorn's turret, Symmetra's teleporter, Winston's barrier, and Illari's pylon, regardless in what order it was placed. It can raise up friendly and enemy pops up in the air, Orisa while in Fortify, and it can lift teammates out of Zarya's special, Graviton Surge. There are many ways to apply this, and there are many guides on YouTube you can search for to master the use of this. His second ability, Life Grip, can pull allies towards the exact spot you activated the ability. It provides a small amount of healing and prevents damage as long as the pull and the orb are happening. You can use the pull to block some of the attacks and momentarily stop damage from environmental effects. You can even use this ability to pull out one of your allies out of Graviton Surge, Gravitic Flux, Chain Hook, and out of a Reinhardt Charge. You can help allies to access points of vantage faster, pull a tank who's coming back to the group from respawn to get to your group faster, grab an ally who's getting ganked from all sides, or reposition an ally to activate their special. This ability has a big cooldown usually, so using this ability effectively will take a lot of practice and luck. Finally, his special is Tree of Life. It instantly begins healing the second that it is placed, and after healing fully, it turns the extra health into over health. Since his healing is kinda limited, this special can last a very long time and provide a lot of health, but since the tree has a health bar, it can be destroyed. A hefty life bar prevents it from being destroyed instantly, but if all your enemies concentrate their fire on it, they can take it down easily. So distraction is key to prevent your enemies from destroying it. Placement of the tree can destroy other deployable items like Immortality Field, Sentry Turret, Healing Pylon, and Steel Trap when it is activated on top of said item, except for the Petal Platform and the Minefield. Enemies can't phase through the tree, so it can be used to block access to areas or to trap enemies in. Number 7, Moira. Moira is another unique healer who is able to deal damage and heal at the same time. Her mobility is super good, but her healing needs to be replenished by dealing damage, so it is necessary to juggle both aspects of her kit to be successful as a Moira player. Her abilities allow her to be aggressive, and she is the best counter for characters like Genji, Tracer, and Sigma. Her damage tendril is one of the best counters against characters who deflect or absorb damage. Her healing and damage is done by Biotic Grasp. Her primary fire does the healing, and since it is considered a projectile, it doesn't pass through enemy barriers, and it expends biotic energy, meaning you only have a certain amount of healing available that needs to be replenished by dealing damage. That's where her secondary fire comes into play. Her biotic tendril auto-locks on an enemy and can be switched on the go, but it doesn't deal as much damage as it used to. Her damage tendril can't deal damage or lock onto enemies through enemy barriers, and combining her melee when close to an enemy is a good strategy to deal a little bit of extra damage when they are very low on health. Her first ability, Biotic Orb, releases an orb of energy. Depending on your needs, it can be a healing orb, freeing you to deal a bit of damage with Biotic Grasp, or a damage orb, which can either allow you to heal your allies or to deal that little bit of extra damage. When the orb is not close to an ally or an enemy, it moves very fast. The second it comes into contact, it slows down considerably to either heal or deal damage, auto-locking on its targets. You can bounce the orb on walls to get around tight corners without having to expose yourself to the enemy, and it is best used when your allies or enemies are together. Healing Orb will lock on an ally close to it, while Damage Orb will deal its damage to all enemies that get close as well. Since it has a low cooldown time, use it in conjunction with your main and secondary fire to heal while you do damage, or vice versa. Always make sure you deal enough damage to replenish your healing bar. bar. Be careful with Sigma or Diva as they can absorb your orb, nullifying its effects. Using this effectively takes a bit of practice, but it is well worth the effort. Her secondary ability is Fade, which makes her invisible and intangible for a couple of seconds. It removes most of the negative status effects that are applied to her and makes her immune to all damage during the fade. At the end of the fade, if you press jump just before her fade ends, she gains a bit more distance with her dash. Finally, her special is Coalescence, which makes Moira release a long beam of energy that heals your allies and deals damage to enemies at the same time while the special is active. She is not immune to damage and can be stunned, knocked down, or hacked out of it. She can use the fade while in the middle of her special, which will temporarily stop and resume the special the second she exits the fade. No kind of barrier can block Moira's special except for Saria's bubble. Number 8, Lucio. Lucio is a musician who uses the power of his healing grooves to provide his healing and speed boosts, passively via an aura that surrounds him. He doesn't have much damage output as most of the other healers, but combined with his speed, wall riding, and the knockback of Soundwave, as long as he keeps close to his allies, he'll be able to provide his buffs passively to all of his allies at the same time. His primary fire is with the Sonic Amplifier that fires a burst of 4 shots with a low amount of damage. His projectiles have no drop-off and can hit enemies from far away. As such, you can use it to poke small amounts of damage on your enemy to make it easier for your DPS and tank to eliminate them. Lucio shines in his unique passive ability, Wall Ride, which allows him to jump on a wall or any vertical surface and ride along it, even lampposts and signs to get around the map. Any vertical surface is no challenge for him. Wall riding will give you a good speed boost on yourself and can be combined with his second ability, Crossfade, and fire at your enemies while wall riding and jump from surface to surface with no cooldown. You have to keep the jump button pressed to continue wall riding, so I suggest changing the jump button to one of the bumpers or key that you can comfortably keep pressed for long periods of time. Also on the settings section, you can toggle on the enable backwards riding option in your character options, so you can wall ride by jumping backwards as well. These 2 changes should increase your efficiency with Lucio considerably. His secondary fire is Soundwave, which creates a blast of sound that knocks back enemies who are caught in its path. It provides a bit more damage, but it is used mainly as a way to push back enemies who are trying to flank from behind, or to force distance between you and your attacker to give you a chance of escape, or even boop a single enemy or group into the way of your ally's special. You can activate it while reloading, but at the cost of interfering with your reload animation. How far you knock back your enemy depends in what direction that you're aiming at. If you aim a little higher, you can knock back farther. If you look down, you won't knock back as much. Always be sure to be looking straight ahead or a little bit higher when activating Soundwave. His first ability, Crossfade, switches between 2 songs, which either give a speed boost or healing boost to the allies who are inside the radius of its aura. This ability has no cooldown, but needs to be pressed every time you want to switch between healing or speed. If you switch out the jump button, this is one possible ability you can switch out to, making it easier to switch between buffs as needed while in the middle of fights. The second ability, Amp It Up, provides a short burst of extra speed or healing depending on the buff that is activated. You can switch in between both boosts while the amp up is active and not interrupt its ability. Finally, the special ability is Sound Barrier, which provides a massive amount of overhealth for a couple of seconds. It doesn't activate automatically, having Lucio jump before landing and activating the ability. As such, be careful when casting it, as too much damage coming your way will get you killed in midair before the special can even activate and you lose all your charge back to 0. This special is great to use when pushing into an objective and can even deny huge amounts of damage from other DPS specials. Number 9, Baptiste. Baptiste is a combat healer with a gun that fires 3-round bursts. He can deal decent damage, but at the expense of his movement, although he has a lot of vertical access to higher areas. You will need to master the use of his immortality field and strategically use his vertical jumps to become good with this character. Even though he does deal a good amount of damage, always prioritize healing your allies, and since you can reposition with ease, this should make it a lot easier to do so. His unique passive is Exo Boots, which allow him to reach high places by crouching and then jumping. It takes a couple of seconds to charge up fully, but can can be used before it fully charges. Using this gets some getting used to, but it can aid you in escaping enemy flankers, evading damage from far away, and repositioning to better vantage points up high where you can do healing or damage where necessary. His primary fire is the Biotic Launcher, which deals a decent amount of damage, where every time he fires his gun, kicks back slightly, raising his crosshair, resetting back in between shots. The knockback is minimal, so you can spam his shots without worry, as long as your reticule is always on the enemy. But it is not very good for fighting long range. It's more useful for close or mid-range fights. His secondary fire is how he heals his allies by shooting mini grenades. This doesn't heal Baptiste, and since it's a projectile, it can be absorbed, deflected, and blocked by enemy barriers. When you reload, it replenishes both ammo types, which means you can freely alternate between both types of fire as needed. His first ability is Regenerative Burst, which heals yourself and any allies next to you. It applies a small amount of health and then continues healing small amounts of HP for a couple of seconds. This is the only way that Baptiste can heal himself, and since it needs to be activated to start the healing process, you need to activate his ability preemptively when you're low on health and enemy fire is coming your way. His second ability is Immortality Field. Baptiste throws a device that prevents your allies from dying by keeping their health from going below 20% as long as the device is active and can be thrown through enemy barriers. This device can be destroyed by the enemy with a couple of shots, so it's not very effective with specials that deal huge amounts of damage over a long period of time like Reapers and Ramatras. This ability is better used to deal with instant explosive damage like Diva's Bomb and Junkrat's Riptire, or for clutch moments to give your ally those extra seconds to finish off an enemy or escape damage. Sombra has the option to hack the device, so be very careful when placing the item with one of them on the enemy team. Finally, this special is Amplification Matrix, which places down a transparent wall or matrix that doubles the damage of all projectiles that pass through it. It also doubles any healing projectiles like Ana's Rifle, Lifeweaver's Blossom, Juno's Gun, and Kiriko's Talismans. It does not enhance energy-based attacks like Symmetra's, Zarya's, Winston's, or Illari's. Best moments to use your special is when combined with attack-intensive allies like Orisa and Bastion when pushing an objective. But since it doubles all healing projectiles as well, it can be used to provide clutch healing in those moments where you need to hold the point and keep your allies alive. Number 10, Illari. Illari is an offensive support healer who passively heals her allies primarily with her healing pylon while leaving her free to deal damage with her main gun, Solar Rifle. Her energy pylon is essential to her kit and must be mastered if you want to use her effectively. You don't necessarily have to stick close to your allies all the time, but always make sure that her pylon is always placed in areas where your teammates can receive their heals from. Her primary fire is with her solar rifle, which fires energy beams at one-shot intervals with no fall-off, allowing you to hit enemies from far away. She has a small charge meter underneath her aiming reticule that indicates how much damage you do. When the bar is full, you do full damage. When the bar is halfway, your damage is halved. As such, take the time between shots to take full advantage of her full bar to deal full damage always. Only spam your shots when your enemy is very low on health. Her secondary fire provides a small burst of healing for a short number of seconds, but you need to be close to your ally to hit them with the healing beam. It provides a lot of healing in a very short amount of time, so it comes in handy to keep your allies alive in those moments when that enemy is pushing in on the objective. Don't exhaust her alternate fire though, as the cooldown is increased when you do this. Reserve her secondary fire to provide healing when your allies move far beyond your pylon. Her first ability is Outburst, which emanates from her a small explosion of light that launches you in the direction that your left stick or directional button is pressing towards. It provides no healing and it does a small amount of damage, but it knocks back enemies forcefully. If you tap the ability, you will get a small burst of speed, which you can use to move faster around corners to evade damage. And if you keep the button pressed, you'll be propelled into the air, allowing you to reach some high places to reposition or escape from enemy flankers. Her second ability is Healing Pylon. It's deployable that when placed, it will automatically start to heal the ally with the lowest health, as long as there are no walls or enemy obstacles obstructing its view of your ally, since the cooldown on the ability is usually low. you should reposition your pylon as the battles move back and forward. Pylon placement is essential to her effectiveness. It must be placed in areas that enemy DPS cannot destroy it easily, and that has a clear line of sight of your allies, which frees you to deal damage or provide burst healing with your alternate fire when needed. Placement of the pylon, as stated previously, is integral, as if destroyed by the enemy, it places a big cooldown on it that severely limits your healing for longer than it should. The placement of the pylon cannot be absorbed or deflected, but the healing projectile itself can be deflected and blocked by enemy barriers. As long as the pylon has a direct line of sight with your ally, you can place it in high areas, near roofs, around corners, or even on the objective itself. Get creative and replace the pylon whenever you can keep your enemies second guessing where it is. Her special is Captive Sun, allowing you to hover and move around the map without restriction for as long as the special is active. It fires a ball of energy, applying splash damage to anyone who's hit, as well as slowing them down considerably. If you and your allies are able to deal additional damage to the enemies hit with the special, it explodes a second time, dealing considerable damage. It only fires once, but you can still hover for a couple of seconds after you fire to help you deal some damage afterwards. You are not immune to damage though, and can be stunned or hacked out of her special, as well as have her ball absorbed by D.Va's Defense Matrix, Sigma's Kinetic Grasp, Zarya's Bubble, or an enemy barrier. The slowdown effect can be countered best by Kiriko's Protection Zuzu and Zenyatta's Transcendence. It is best used with groups of enemies, as you can inflict extra damage on your enemy to cause them to explode a second time. Otherwise, the second explosion doesn't happen if you don't. Final note, her special has the smallest fill requirement, so you can get your special pretty fast. As such, I recommend using her special with a bit more frequency than some of the other supports. Number 11, Juno. Juno is another offensive healer who heals primarily from shooting at her allies with her Meta Blaster, while providing speed boosts at the same time with her abilities. Her kit makes her very mobile and able to reposition to most vantage points while using objects and other terrain close at hand. You want to stay close by to your allies so you can apply your boost when it's needed. Her passive ability is Martian Overboost, which allow her to double jump and glide down for a short time in the air. Since you need to keep the button pressed to take full advantage of her hover, I recommend changing her jump to a bumper or key that you can comfortably keep pressed for long periods of time. Her main weapon is the Meta Blaster, which fires a burst of energy bullets at 1 second intervals between shots. Her shots can both heal allies and do damage to enemies at the same time. This is her main way of providing healing, so aiming your shots is essential to provide the necessary healing to your allies. Her secondary fire is Pulsar Torpedoes, which fire homing projectiles that can heal allies and deal damage to enemies in the same activation of the ability. The farther you are from your enemy or ally, the more time it will take to lock onto your target. You lock on every ally and enemy that is in your field of view, while the ability is locking in targets, meaning you can target all allies and enemies with it. Your objective is not to maximize the number of targets, but to lock on as fast as possible when enemies are aiming at you, and use it to heal your allies if the situation permits it. Press the primary fire button after locking in, otherwise the ability will not activate. Her first ability is Glide Boost, which gives you a short fast dash in the direction that your left stick is pointing at, coupled with a speed boost and the ability to float and move horizontally for a couple of seconds. This burst of speed allows you to maneuver around your allies, escape enemy flankers, effect direct damage faster, and reach your allies as soon as possible to keep healing them. Her second ability, Hyper Ring, deploys a ring that provides a speed boost to you and your allies for a couple of seconds. The ring doesn't activate instantly, taking a couple of seconds to deploy, unless you aim it to the ground, and can be stacked with the Glide Boost. You can use it to help your allies reach objectives faster, and to help your allies move faster and evade damage in the middle of confrontations. Finally, her special is Orbital Ray, that calls down a ray of light that travels forward, healing allies and increasing their damage. It doesn't provide instant healing, so it's not very good for denying specials with explosive damage like a D.Va Bomb, Reaper Special, or Junkrat's Riptire. Keep track of the direction that you want the ray to go, as the second the beam of light hits the ground, you can't change its direction. When her special is deployed, it can heal on allies on different levels who are inside the beam and cannot be blocked by any barriers. Her special doesn't activate automatically, taking a couple of seconds to go through her animation to activate. As such, using her special preemptively is recommended when you know the enemy is starting to deal big amounts of damage or before you start to push in on an objective. Boy, that was a long video, wasn't it? But that wraps up our description of Overwatch 2's support characters for Press Start Gaming. The key to playing better with a character is understanding what they can do. And I hope that with this, you'll understand them better in your journey to becoming the best support you can be. For more advanced options, there are a myriad of YouTube videos that'll talk more in depth about each support character. Find a YouTuber you like and watch their guides for more advanced playstyles. So get out there and keep practicing with as many characters as you can. If you found this guide helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more video game content in the future. And don't forget to share your own tips and experiences in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching.